We're recording now. And like I said, thank you for joining us. I mean, after Diana and I and Corinne came down to your place on the way home, I was just so enthralled with what you've done down there with the coffee shop and music. I told Diana, I said, you know what, we need to interview her, just kind of see the background of all of this and you know, kind of talk about what you think is going on, what you plans for your future there and that type of thing. So you know, that's why we asked you to come on here. So I kind of, you know, wanted to start out, you know, actually kind of talk about your radio background a little bit. Mm-hmm. And just kind of give us the 411 on that.
Well, I started very, very young. I think my first time on the radio was when I was probably in 7th or 8th grade in a spelling bee, and I think I won it actually. But I was really fascinated with the microphones and the hearing myself, you know, and I was kind of hooked on that. So then when I was a little bit older, I had the opportunity to, our high school actually had a commercial radio station run by high school students. And so I did that for a couple of years in high school, a long, long time ago. And when I graduated from high school, I wanted to go into radio and I tried to get a job. And at that time, women on the radio were, I wouldn't even say they were rare. It just, I mean, you know, it was just, people just laughed at me. I mean,
right.
Just,
I can so relate to that. That's exactly what happened.
Yeah, we're about the same age, and yeah, they did. It literally would. I think I had one little radio station that offered me a cooking show on Saturday if I would also be a secretary, but I couldn't type, you know, so that didn't work. So I didn't do it, and then I was in college, and my college roommate was a part-time secretary for an engineer who owned a radio station. And he needed someone, everybody had quit, and he asked her if I would go down and just sit there because I had a license, an FCC license, in case somebody showed up. And I did, and within, you know, 2 or 3 hours, I was hooked again. So I did that all till I was probably 23 or 24. That station switched formats and automated, and I sent out a lot of resumes and a lot of tapes, and I ran into Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and then wasn't there long and went to Memphis and was there a long, long time. And I've worked at several other places, but I really consider the best part of my career being in Memphis with a great station and great people, and you know how that is.
Yeah,
like family.
Yeah. So when did you came back to Buffalo in what year?
1985. Well, actually, Buffalo 1989, but I moved back to Springfield area in 1984. I think it was.
Okay. And is that when you quit the radio business?
That's when I quit radio. I did a few little things, but I started doing more voice work. I did a lot of national commercials and kind of did that, and really haven't done radio since then. Yeah.
Well, I kind of, Diana gave me some of the articles about your family farm being there since the 40s and the process of when you went back to that. I mean, was that always a goal, or was it just kind of a?
No, it wasn't.
Yeah.
My family's actually, they have been in Dallas County, Buffalo and Dallas County. They moved here 2 years after the Civil War.
Wow.
Several brothers, and they all homesteaded, and some bought, but a couple of them homesteaded. We still got the original land grants here. And then, of course, my son Lyle, who is a musician, 10 days before he graduated from college, his grandfather died, and this farm has passed down and down and down and down, and we were the ones that wound up with the farm, the cattle, and Lyle, being a musician, and a writer, really didn't know anything about it. He had been around his family a lot, but they hadn't really been active farmers for a while. So it was a trial by fire. It was
Yeah.
interesting. It was very, very interesting and a quick learning process. But he had always wanted to hang on to it because his father or grandfather and great uncles had wanted him to keep it. So he did, and he started taking some agriculture classes and learning about cattle and livestock and farming. So so a lot of his songs are
Right.
themed around small towns and farms.
Well, and those type of family legacies on those farms are getting to be less and less every day.
They are.
Yeah.
It's difficult to do a lot of things. Actually, I think, and back to the radio thing, well, I worked in primarily major market commercial radio, and that has changed so much. And I think really what's happening now, the beauty of radio now is community radio and public radio. And the farming is kind of the same way. 30 years ago, Lyle couldn't have continued his music and kept up the farm in Buffalo, Missouri. But now you can do so much of it online, and you can tour a little bit and still, you can still maintain both. But 30 years ago, even 20 years ago, couldn't have done that.
Right. Diana, you have any question you want to add? Just interject there.
Well, I just, I've always admired, what I've always admired about you and Lyle is your commitment to that local community there. Despite a lot of obstacles, not only financial, but familial and community and whatever. One of the things that we're trying to hone in on at the Heartland Song Network is whether you can, in fact, have a career and stay in your home base and not necessarily tour the world or the country or even an entire region of the country. Is it possible to develop, maintain, nurture, survive, strive in a local music ecosystem? And I don't know that I have a question. There's not a question there. It's just kind of some stream of consciousness thinking that we've had about the setup that you and Lyle have there in Buffalo, and whether you think it could be a model for other communities, or have you even thought about, that aspect of what you are doing there in Buffalo?
I think it's absolutely, we when we started the concert series, I had done some booking of concert series for other people. Actually did one for a bank for a while, and they actually had them in the lobby of the bank on Friday afternoons. So we've been doing this for probably 9 years now. And when we started, the people in our little town had no idea what it was. They didn't understand it because Lyle grew up here. They knew that he did music and that he went across the country, but people here didn't really know what the concept of hearing live music, other than maybe out at a bar, which there aren't really those here. So I used to say they didn't know anything, that there was music between the people that sang at the county fair and Taylor Swift. They just, that's what they were aware of. So it was actually an educational experience for our little town here. And we really, frankly, did it. We had 3 reasons in mind when we started it here. One was to help touring musicians, because Lyle tours. I know that they can play Friday and Saturday nights and do well, but Monday through Thursdays, they still have to pay hotel bills and road expenses, but it's really hard to get shows. So we started ours for one reason, to help touring musicians as they're touring through, to fill a night and have a place to stay at no charge on a weeknight. Our other big reason was to provide something for the community, something cultural, something fun, a way for people to meet, pardon me, and come out and enjoy themselves and be exposed to music that they otherwise would not be aware of. In order to do that, and the reason I do think it's possible for other areas to do it, we have business sponsors that help us to pay the fee for the artist. So that takes the pressure off of us. And if we don't sell out, the artist still gets their fee, It's been really, really interesting, and we've grown a lot. And we're, I think, probably going to start doing live streaming on those concerts. But those were our real reasons for doing it, was to help other musicians and to bring something to the community, because there's not a lot to do here.
Well, and I would say that, you know, those type of sponsorships, I've always thought this, that when you get the local community sponsor, they all of a sudden have some ownership in the, in what's
Yes,
going on.
right.
Pride in it. And that's community building right there for very little money, actually.
Yeah, we don't have, the sponsors don't pay a huge amount, but you know, it's enough to carry it
Right.
and help us to get a little, you know, higher
Yeah.
notch.
Yeah. So you pretty much, I mean, you do all kinds of, I'm sure, different types of music, probably mainly roots type stuff and that type of thing. But are you seeing, I mean, as the community, do they come in and, I mean, do people come and do you sell out? Do you, I mean, your average show or?
Not an average show. And of course, the pandemic has hurt us, our
Right.
audience, like everybody else. But
Yeah.
typically we will do, and our official seating here, I think, is 99. And before the pandemic, we were averaging 65, 70, between 60 and 70 people per show. I always tell people that, you know, the people that are coming by and large do not know the entertainers,
Right.
have never heard of them, but they've kind of realized that they're going to be good. So, you know, they come not knowing the person. They usually buy a lot of merchandise, and they're big fans after they see them, but they don't, by and large, know. Now, we did have Jim Lauderdale here, and I just said our capacity was 99. I think we had 112 people for that show, and it did sell out in advance. But mostly people just show up, and we sell some advance tickets, but primarily we've got plenty of space.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. So is it basically the same crowd all the time, or do they?
it isn't. I mean, well, the crowd ranges from people in their probably early 20s to, you know, on up.
Right.
Primarily more our age, you know, 40s and 50s up, but we have a few younger people. And they come from surrounding communities. So we're 30 miles from Springfield, Missouri. So we have a lot of people that drive down from Springfield or Ozark. When we have people like Travis Linville from Oklahoma, we have people drive from Fayetteville and Little Rock, and, you know, people that have a bigger following. But by and large, it's our little community. And almost every concert, and we do one per month, we have someone, maybe 2 or 3 people who've never been here before, and they saw it in the paper or they saw it on Facebook or something and show up. So we have some regulars that never miss a show, but it's a little bit more rotating, I'd say.
Now, before you had your venue that you have there now, the Maple in Maine, where did you have your series?
Well, this is very interesting. We had it here first when this was an art gallery, and we had it here, and then there were some problems with the owner, and we actually moved across the street to the furniture store. And it seems pretty odd, but they are one of our sponsors, and they've been in business for the same family in the same location for 103 years, I think. So, you know, we're very familiar with them, and we suddenly at the last minute needed a place to put the concert series, and I went over and said, can we do this here? So their building is 103 years old, and part of it is just gorgeous with the woodwork and the second story and the stairs that go up. And so we would put the artist right in front of the staircase going up to the second floor and move the furniture around, and people would sit on the couches, and, you know, and we had smaller crowds, but it worked very well. And we were there for about, I think we were there for 8 months, and then we had a chance to buy this building, and the previous place had gone out of business. So we bought the building from her and just have been here ever since.
So when did you buy the building? When did that start?
That was November of 2016.
Okay. Okay.
So,
So not that, about 5 years now.
yeah, about 5 years ago.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
And it's great because it's a little work to set up. We move furniture around and set the sound up. But, before we were having to, and that was not fun. We're having to haul a sound system in every time. And it was kind of a pain.
Mhm.
So, and this room is tuned and the lighting's set, it's a pretty streamlined thing now. The artist comes in and does a quick sound check and everything's set and ready to go.
Mhm. So with, and everybody, all the conversation is pre-pandemic and, I mean, and
Yeah.
all that kind of thing. I mean, what are your guys' plans for, as we kind of look like we're maybe phasing out of this thing?
Well, to be honest, Buffalo is a small conservative town, and we did lose a lot of audience, but there were still people that came. It was difficult during the so we were shut down by the state for 2 months, last April and May. So we, for those 2 months, did an online concert, and we had 8 artists that did 2 songs each from all over the world, so that people wouldn't get bored with just one. And we did that for 2 months. Our sponsors hung with us for that. So we were able to pay those people, the artists. And then we started back in June of last year with social distancing and all of that. And we had very small crowds. They got down, I think, to maybe 15 or 16 people at one point.
Right.
Hard to put people 6 feet apart when they come solos, but we actually didn't close. We kept doing them, with the exception of last April and May. We did them all year, and they are starting to build back up because most people are fully vaccinated now, and they're a little more comfortable
Yeah.
going. So,
Yeah.
so we're hoping it will just gradually build up, and that more people will be touring. It's been also really hard to get artists. We've drawn from people closer, because we had people scheduled that lived in, England and Minnesota and New York. And,
Right.
they were coming here
Right.
during, for one show. So
It's kind of slow to get the engine running again.
it
Really.
is. And everyone that has played in the last few months have just been thrilled to be in front of an audience again.
Right.
It's just, I think we had one person that almost just cried. They were just so overwhelmed with the audience again.
Uh-huh. Well, that's very good. Diana?
I'm curious what approach you took or take when you're approaching a sponsor, or if they came to you. Do you switch it up? Is it the same sponsors, and how does that work? Do they sign up for like a year, or it's just done show by show, or
no? So since we started this, I think 8 or 9 years ago, we've only lost one sponsor, and that was because they retired and went out of business. So when we started it, and I had the idea, because we want to be fair with what we pay the artist as much as we can. So I went to my friends over at the furniture store, Chapman's Furniture in Buffalo, and said, they're longtime friends. And I said, we need you to sponsor this. We need this. And so they did. So they were on the board. I didn't really ask them. I just said, you have to do this,
Right.
And then I was in a meeting, a community association meeting with someone else that has the Mallard Brothers Cafe here in Buffalo. And it used to be a place, their place used to be called Maple Street Grill. And I talked to them about it and just explained what it was, because really people had no idea what on earth we were even doing. So, I explained it to them, and it was a lot of money, and we were trying to build awareness of our downtown and develop community and give people something that they could do that, just something that would raise Buffalo up a little bit. So they were in, and then the next one was an insurance agent, the one that retired, and he came to a couple of concerts and loved it. So I asked him, and he was in. And then from that point, we started getting a lot of notice. So we do get good publicity, very good publicity from the local paper and also the Springfield paper
Uh-huh.
and some radio. And for a while, all of our artists were on a live TV show in Springfield the day of the concert. So we were getting a lot of awareness. And from that point, actually, the other sponsors came to us. So we have 6 sponsors and we want to keep it around that number. It's just worked very well. I don't think without the sponsors, we would not be able to do it. We wouldn't consistently make, enough to pay the artists fees that we like to pay.
Yeah.
Sometimes, when we had Jim Lauderdale, we had a full house. And sometimes we have money and we set it aside to get a bigger artist like Lauderdale that is more than our usual, we have to pay more. But we keep our ticket prices low so that everyone in our community can afford to come.
Mhm.
And we have people who are on very limited incomes who set aside that money every month and, give up a meal at McDonald's to come to the concert series. So to us, the sponsors are invaluable,
Yeah.
just invaluable.
Yeah.
And
But has the city of Buffalo or Dallas County itself, do they have an economic development entity that is aware of what you're doing and is able to support you financially in some way because of what you're bringing to the table, or?
I don't think so. We do have an economic developer, but I think they're more, their task is more trying to bring jobs and things like that here. I think that there are things, and we've talked to some people about things. There's the Missouri Arts Council, and there's the CFO, the Community Foundation of the Ozarks. But since we are not a nonprofit, we're for profit. We don't make any money,
Right.
but technically
Yeah.
we're not.
Yeah.
We don't make anything, but technically we're for profit.
Mhm.
So that cuts us out of a lot of other
Mhm.
any grants or things like that.
I have a question for Danny.
Yes.
My audio with Jacquelyn is fine, but her video is jumping all over the place all the time. Is that doing it for you too?
Yeah. But I think that's just a connection.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
just wanted to make sure it wasn't just me, because I thought if it was just a loose cable or something. I think it's probably just the bandwidth, but the audio is fine. I mean, there's
Yeah.
no denigration in the audio, so
Well,
just wanted to make sure it
and-
wasn't me. freaking
we kind of talked to you when we were down there about our organization, and our whole goal is to help. We're kind of tuned into a 4-state area: Missouri, Kansas, Nebraska, and Iowa.
Mhm.
And it is our goal, my goal is to find these locations like yours,
Uh-huh.
and to not only find them so we can help spread the word, but be a part of a network, that,
Uh-huh.
so my question is to you, what can Heartland Song Network do for you that we can help you, be viable and stay viable? I mean, because that's what our goal is.
Well, I think for one thing, this is going to sound crazy. We've all been to Folk Alliance and probably been in meetings where they talk about how presenters, and then that's the word they call concert, people who present presenters, and how they just get bombarded with people wanting to play, and how to, the etiquette of artists and performers and songwriters contacting presenters because they're just so overwhelmed. And the truth is, we are not overwhelmed. I don't know. We view ourselves as being in a perfect little spot. We're 2.5 hours from Kansas City, 3.5 hours from St. Louis, 4 hours from Tulsa, 5
Right.
hours from Memphis, 2.5 hours from Fayetteville. We are right on a tour route easily. But for some reason, people just don't think of us here, even in Springfield, we're just not here. And I think one thing that you could do to help is, make your artist aware and put together EPKs and to help find artists. It's harder to book the series than you would think it would be.
Yeah.
And
Well,
of course, like everybody else, we have our criteria. We're not going to book a full band and or real. We focus on songwriters. People do covers, of course, but our real focus is on songwriters, and we do solos, duos, maybe trios. We don't ever have drums, and we focus on. We talked a little bit when you were here. We focus on folk music. It may have a blues slant or a jazz slant or an Americana slant, but we're not doing probably hip hop or
right. Sure. Well, yeah, we can do that. I mean, we can let a lot of people know about you, and you probably start getting bombarded. And I mean, it's
we're good about answering people back.
but we were trying to be very careful about it because we didn't know where you were at as far as wanting things like that.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, that doesn't bother me also, because I primarily do Lyle's booking when he tours outside the country and or outside of, when he's going up east or west or whatever. And it does not bother me for someone to send me an email and ask about a show, because that's how you get your shows. If you don't ever ask anybody, you're never going to get anyone.
Are you part of a network at all in terms of House Concert Network, or?
We are not. No, we're just kind of out here on our own.
Yeah. Well,
We to be honest, and sometimes, as you know, I can't remember if you were here when we were having a crisis. We had kind of a crisis one time when someone got sick. When the pandemic stopped, we had a guy, wonderful guy from Minneapolis, I think, that was playing that month, and he couldn't do it. It was too much of a risk. So we had to find someone in a hurry, and when we do that, we start looking at clubs that are open. We look at Knuckleheads all the time to see who's playing there. I know of a lot of concert series and house concerts around, and we start just trying to think of people and looking up and seeing who else, people in Tulsa or Fayetteville or Kansas City, who else has someone coming that might be within a few hours drive of us, that could squeeze us in. We're on Thursday night, so it's a night that's hard to fill for a lot of artists, and easy for us because that's when our audience is available. If we were on Friday or Saturday, we probably would not have the audience that we have.
Right.
Because people are, going to their grandkids' ball games and their, children's dance recitals or whatever. So
I think that we're finding there's a couple of venues here in Kansas City that their singer-songwriter night is Thursday night. Or Tuesday night, or one of the off nights, because Friday and Saturday night is when they book their bands and their cover.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and as when we were down there, you could tell how excited I was about your building.
Well, we love the building. It's a cool building.
And I was serious about coming down to help Lyle.
Anytime.
That thing, so,
actually, we've done a lot more to it since you were there. They were down staining the concrete last night.
So really, very good.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. Well, I really think that the type of thing that you've got going on is they're out there, but like you say, more people need to know about them. Because I know, I was sitting here thinking about some artists, that we have around here. They have their fan base that'll travel 2 hours just to get out of town. And we do.
So
So I really am excited about what you got going on down there.
It's a cool place, and you know, the sound is always great, you know, because Lyle's sound guy. Uh, it really is a cool place. I have to say this, we talked about the sponsors. We have a great audience, and I know that people always say they have a great audience, but we really do, because there is just nothing else musical going on here. So our audience is really, really appreciative, uh, to the point that one of our sponsors during the pandemic they stopped coming because he was compromised, and every month he would come in and pay his sponsorship fee and buy tickets for the next concert that he knew he wasn't going to attend, and leave a $50 bill for the merch table of the artist, and
Yeah.
say, you know, I don't need any merchandise, but I know the crowds are down, and you know, they're not selling as much, so just do this. That's a good audience.
That's a good audience. That is.
I think it could serve, I mean, one of the things that excites me about it, that I think it could serve as a model or a template for other communities. Not that there's, you know, a Jacquelyn Strickland or a Lyle Strickland in every little town, but there are people that I think, the people that are coming to mind are, Danny, are like Alexa Dawson, where she is in the Flint Hills of Kansas.
Uh-huh.
Or the folks that I know that live in small town Oklahoma and
Right.
Nebraska and Northeast Kansas. Those are people that, you know, if they were, I think, presented with kind of the same environment and the same opportunity that Jacquelyn has built in Buffalo, that it could be replicated anywhere.
Right.
I think it could. And, you know, you run into problems, or you might, if, you know, we have the space, and we have a great space, but we didn't own the space in the beginning. It was, you know, hauling the stuff up here on concert day, and putting out the chairs and setting up the sound. But I think in a small town community, you would find, for example, someone that might be willing to lend a location, you know, not
There's
just
a lot of
sponsors.
empty churches in this country
Yes,
that
yes,
have wonderful acoustics that you don't even need
Uh-huh.
probably microphones and stuff.
right.
A lot of community buildings and school auditoriums and movie theaters, and that are just sitting there empty.
Yes,
You know.
yes, there's several. And I will say also, when talking about the sponsorship, our original idea for the sponsorships was because we were paying the artists quite a bit more than we started. But our original reason for getting the sponsorship was so that we could keep our ticket price very low.
Right.
So that you know, we are a poor community here, and we wanted it to be open and available for anyone, not just, you know, the people that could afford it, but the people who it was a little more, you know, older people on Social Security, or you know, just people that a $25 ticket would be too high, you know. So our tickets are $10. I know it's really low, and we've had some artists that are insulted by the ticket price, but then when they meet the people and they come, they're okay with it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, our Bloody Mary morning that we do, it's free. You know.
Yeah.
So,
Are they insulted? Let's hope not.
and we've got sponsors for it. So
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's great. I mean, it takes the like I said, we sometimes you know, we build that money up, and we're looking at some bigger artists that we wouldn't be able to get for, obviously, for our regular fee. And we talk about where we would like to go. We've toyed around with the idea of trying to develop a festival, but you know, you heard the baby crying earlier. I don't know how much we've got in us on that right now.
Do you know Jeanette Bear down in Reed Springs?
I do know Jeanette and is it Bruce, and we don't share many of their artists. We do some. They book a little more roots, which we would book that too, but they have people that are a little bit more regional. So we try to use people from all over the country.
Right. And she does a festival too.
She does a great little
And
festival.
she has incorporated as a nonprofit under the umbrella of,
Yeah.
so how do you handle, or are you bothered by things like performing rights organizations and insurance?
We don't do insurance other than just our insurance for the building and the business here.
Right.
So we don't have insurance for the series, and we pay our fees for the performance.
PRs.
Yeah, we pay our fees. Lyle, I have a background with BMI from 40 years ago, and Lyle's a BMI writer, and I wish he saw more from BMI.
Yeah.
From those, but we just pay them. We just look at it as we pay our electric bill, and we
Right.
that
Yeah.
and BMI, I think ASCAP has a program too. I can't remember what it's called, but BMI has a program now called BMI Live, and if people fill out their forms, and you just type it in on the computer. I do Lyle's. If like for example, if they're playing here and within however few weeks they just fill in the form on the computer of what songs they played, they get money every quarter. It's not a lot, but it's mailbox money, and it helps.
Well, and I one of the things that we really are focusing on, and I focus on, is the fact that places like yours and educating the people around you that music is not just an added value to something else. It's
Right.
It's an essential value first
Yes.
and foremost. And,
Yeah.
and I think that that's the cultural change that needs to occur in a lot of areas, even in Kansas City metropolitan area to an extent. That it's regarded as one of the arts, but it's not. It doesn't have that standalone quality.
Right.
And
When we started here, I literally for the first maybe year or close to it, got up on the microphone every time and told people what the etiquette was.
I do too at ours.
You have to say, I had to say, when please remain seated unless it's an emergency, turn your cell phone off. Because people just they didn't understand what it was. I actually had to ask someone to leave one time. Not a great situation. People ask me sometimes if it's child friendly, and I always say, well, it isn't child unfriendly, but it's they have to be quiet. If they can sit and and I had some kids that they were like swinging each other around by the arms and back. I would just say it's not an outdoor festival. Little kids dancing in front of the stage are cute at an outdoor festival, but not when someone's sitting down and hearing a heartfelt song that they want to hear. So
well, and I think a lot of people have a misconception that, especially in smaller communities, that if you're listening to live music, that you're in a honky tonk or you're in a bar
Yes.
somewhere or
Yes.
something like that.
Uh-huh.
And they just don't understand what.
Right. And they have to learn. It doesn't take, and now if someone new comes, they pick up really quickly that that people in the audience aren't talking while they're playing. So I don't really have to explain it anymore. But in the beginning, I had someone come in and mad the next day, mad because we wouldn't make them a latte after the music had started. We just say, well, I have to wait till intermission. It's distracting for an artist to hear the espresso machine go off in the middle of the song, and that's not what we're doing here.
Yeah. Well, very, very good. Diana, do you have anything else?
I'm sure that I'll think of things at 3:00 in the morning when I'm trying to.
Of course.
But I mean, I'm just so appreciative and in awe of what you guys are doing down there, and see it as the possibility, as a template, like I said, or a model.
Yeah.
for other communities, and we are trying to find our way as an organization as to the best way to truly be a network. I mean, the network is
Right.
our name,
Mhm.
and our mission, is to elevate the art of song and songwriting through education, collaboration, and mentorship. And that is a broad enough net that there's hardly anything we couldn't do. But
Yeah.
we do need to try to stay focused, and we are trying to find our way. When we first got started, it was as a result of a panel at Folk Alliance that went south.
Uh-huh.
And when we first started, we thought, well, we want to do like on Monday nights at Ollie's, let's do a songwriting, not kind of a swap, but not an open mic, where songwriters can come and try out new material, or if they're having problems finishing a song. It was going to be almost by invitation only.
Right.
And then if it took off, we would start inviting industry people there, people
Uh-huh.
from
Right.
the radio stations and the venues and stuff like that. And the only other thing that we thought of doing is when Folk Alliance rolled around again, that we would do a showcase room, a
Oh,
private
perfect.
showcase.
Yes.
Really the only two things that we had kind of in mind when
Uh-huh.
we started a year ago. And of course, the pandemic threw that all
Right.
in the trash, and we've completely pivoted from that, and are thinking in larger, more
Global terms.
global terms, but still wanting to keep it local, if that makes any
Right.
sense.
Uh-huh.
And just, we know that we've got great musicians here in the Heartland
Uh-huh.
that probably are never going to tour, don't want to tour,
Right.
want to stay close to home. And if they can't make it full time as a musician, because they have to have another job,
Right.
that still doesn't, to me, mean that it's not worthy of our support and our attention. And it makes our communities, to me, more livable
Right.
and more desirable to stay here.
Right. And you have a broad area, really. So even though you're based in Kansas City, but I think you just said Kansas, Nebraska, Missouri,
Mhm.
Iowa. Well, of course, Chad Elliott tours all the time.
Mhm.
But a lot of those people, they might not want to or be able to, tour Ireland or the East Coast or the West Coast or whatever. But Iowa can tour pretty easily down to Missouri, or
Mhm.
Kansas can,
Mhm.
or
And
Missouri
when
can.
you look at, I'm going to be interviewing Chad Elliott on Friday,
Oh, cool.
on
Yeah.
the air on Friday.
Uh-huh.
And one of the things I notice about his calendar coming up is it's almost all Iowa gigs. And I think that
Yes.
one of the things that artists that toured a lot like him
Uh-huh.
realized during the pandemic is that they really did not want to miss their children growing up anymore.
No, right. Yeah.
Shitty food, and that if there was any way to make this, making a living at this by staying closer to
Yes.
home,
Oh,
that
yeah.
that's what they're going to do.
Uh-huh.
That they would much rather play a place like Home Place or
Right.
the Rock House than a bar or a brew pub or whatever, where
Right.
it's just background music. I
Yeah.
think that
Yeah.
people in roots music want to be heard, and that the listening room or the listening room type experience
Uh-huh.
is what they want to do. We have to be, or we want to be really cognizant, though, of representing as many genres as possible and not
Right.
just folk
Uh-huh.
music.
Right.
And in Kansas City, we have, Latin music
Oh,
and
yes.
gospel and hip
Yeah.
hop and pop and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard, to stay focused or whatever. But
Uh-huh.
I think the principles of what I'm talking about should be able to work in any community if you've got the right formula.
Yes, I think so too. And it's worked well here for us.
Yeah.
And we're still growing strong, and I think we'll grow. Kansas City is different, as is Springfield, because it's much broader, you know, musically. I mean, there's, it's there. I would assume there are a lot more places to play that are similar to this there or not? I don't know.
We don't by any means know of all the listening rooms and house concerts,
Uh-huh.
but there's more and more that we're becoming aware of all the time
Uh-huh.
because we're starting to get invited because
Uh-huh.
people are starting to know about us or learn about us, and they want us to know about them, and they want the support, and they want that network, they want
Right.
it. So we're getting invited to a lot of stuff that are series that have been ongoing for quite some time in some cases, and we had no idea.
Yeah.
And my days of, I don't want to go to a bar and
Yeah.
anymore to hear music anymore, like a brew pub or something or sports bar. I don't want
Yeah.
to go hear
Yeah.
music there.
Yeah.
I either want to go to a small theater,
Hmm.
or a listening room.
Right.
I'm going to go to Americana Fest, and I'm going to go to Woody Fest. Woody Fest is about as big as I want,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's capped at about 1,000 people or so, and that's just
Uh-huh.
fine with me.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, you get to a certain age and the arena having people spill their beer all over you. It
Yeah,
just
yeah.
will
I
be
mean, physically, it's just too difficult.
right.
It's not
Yeah.
pleasant. You and I have been doing this for 50 years, and
Right. Yeah.
the kids can go to the Sprint Center and
Yeah.
do all that, but it's not for everybody. And I do think one of the challenges that we have is so many of the performers are younger, and the audiences are so much older. There's
That,
like a disconnect between the age groups there.
we don't find that here. We have a lot of younger artists, and the way we book, we try to balance our artists from a wide geographical area, but also between gender and age. So we may have someone that is an artist that is 25. Our audience is largely much older than that, but I think they probably have kids and grandkids, and they relate somehow. Uh, and then we have artists that are, we've had some artists getting pretty close to 80, and the young people love them.
Yeah,
So we haven't, yeah, it's kind of interesting. It's a different setting. So, I think if our younger group of people that come that are in their 20s, and there's an old guy playing, they might not like the older artist if they were hearing them in a bar, but because they're here and everything's quiet and they're sitting while he's playing, they are focused on his music. And I'm saying I've got a particular person in mind. That younger person in the audience is focused on the older artist stories and music, and they're so focused on it that they like it because it's good.
Well, I think if I lived in Buffalo, Missouri, I would love coming to your place. It's something to do. It's not looking at a screen.
Yeah.
It's something completely different than what's available to them.
So another question I have, and this is kind of off of that subject, but are there any other songwriter musicians around your little area that are kind of hiding in the bushes and stuff besides Lyle?
Well, there are, and I would not want to mention them because I would leave someone out. But there are actually quite a few around in this area, and if you include Springfield, of course, there are tons up there.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are, and the ones that I'm thinking of right now are kind of what Diana was talking about, where they don't really want to tour. They don't want to get out and go very far. They might go to Kansas City, or they might go to Fayetteville. But they're people who have full-time jobs and families, and they're actually quite good. But
well, if they have anything recorded and they want it played on the radio, send it my way, or
I will
have them get in touch with me, because I take great pride in that. And I think it was a week or two ago when I was on the air. I'm new to Fridays, and a guy called me up who'd never heard my show before, and
oh my goodness,
he said, I've never heard of one artist that you've played today.
wow.
Where are you finding these people? And I mean, he was just kind of gobsmacked. And I said,
Right.
do you listen to community radio on a regular basis? Because
Yeah.
that's what we do. That's what we do. There's great artists that need this, need and deserve the support. And I'll be happy to provide you my playlist.
Oh
But
my gosh.
I do try to mix it up between, unknowns and
Right.
local
And
regional.
people a little
This
bit.
particular show, it was almost all local and no national artists at all. But
We were talking about radio before, and my background in radio was in major market commercial radio. But so a lot of my friends are maybe they're hosting shows on Sirius now, or they're retired. And a Facebook complaint among many of them is that they don't like the state of music, and these are mostly country music people. They don't like the state of music today. And I always just say, it isn't the music you're listening to the wrong. You're not looking in the right places.
right.
It's not the big stations now. You hear the good music is on community radio.
Right.
Those people the songs are still there. The artists are still there.
Yeah.
The musicians are still there. But
I mean, in the 11 years now that I've been doing this, there's more music coming to me now than ever.
oh, I'm sure.
The spigot kind of stopped the first 6 months of the pandemic.
Right.
When people came to the realization that this could go on for another 6 months or a year,
Right.
and that doesn't stop the inspiration. That doesn't stop the antenna being up and stuff coming down from the ether. You have to keep going, and so it's coming in bucket loads.
Oh,
from
people have had time to write. And people have really, dug in deep, and yeah, it's a good thing. But I always do. Seriously, people say every song on the radio sounds like the last song on the radio, and I say you're listening to the wrong station.
That's right.
You're in the wrong place. You need to find a community radio station, and there, as you know, community radio stations everywhere now.
Yeah.
Almost everywhere.
And I'll tell them, if you don't like what you're hearing, just stick around for 5 or 10 minutes, because the next one's probably not going to sound anything like it. So
yes, yeah.
I know I'm doing okay when Danny he'll say, "What?" I'm putting the playlist together and I'm playing it. Who's that? What's that?
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. Well, and because of the way the industry has changed so much too, that all the best music is all local now. I mean,
it is.
It
is. When I was on the air, if you had to have a label. You couldn't do it without a label.
Right.
It's before CDs. You had to get a label deal, and now, not necessary.
Yeah.
You've got the talent and the drive, and you can do it.
There are people winning Grammys that have barely been out of their bedrooms.
Yes, I know. It's great.
Well, I don't think I have anything else. That was a quick hour. I didn't know that we could really figure, take out much of your time, but it went by really quickly. And if I think of anything else, we'll just send it to you in an email. Do you have anything else, Danny?
No, just kind of let us know what your schedule is on your performers, and
I will.
And we will, and kind of, if you would, maybe outline your criteria to us again.
Okay.
And then we will begin to, send you some people down there.
Okay.
May we enter your email as a member of the?
Yes. Mine is.
There's no fees involved or anything, but it gets you on our mailing list.
Right. Yeah.
And then when things like that we feel are noteworthy, then we include them on all our social media as well.
Oh.
But other than that, thank you very much. I'm gonna turn off this recording now. We can talk just a little bit, okay?
That's great. Thanks.